In space, no one can stop you from making obscure sci-fi movie references with this intercut shot of the Earth, Moon, and Sun. Well, obscure today. How many people in my audience have actually seen 2001: A Space Odyssey? Oh god, they even have that mechanical bone that one monkey for that movie threw! Wait. Still, that bone hits a satellite, linked to something stored within it to wake up. And it's not in a good mood. Meanwhile, Mail and Neto are dragged into the antics of yet another meeting of the Hot Springs Club, which leads to nonsense because the hot springs they visited... Look, Yai, what is your aversion to just asking them for help? If you're upfront with them, they're more than likely going to say yes! You keep pulling this shit, then they're at some point going to start refusing. See, even they've wised up to the maker of nonsense here. But then Yai takes this even further, for as I've long said was going to happen... You know, I'm not even exasperated at her owning her own space shuttle at this point. My complaint is, why build all these contraptions under a public bathhouse? Do you have any idea how large the explosion for the thrusters on a space shuttle is? You need to keep them away from any other populated place as you devastate it. Maybe we wouldn't if you weren't useless, Glide. But yeah, why Yaito can do this is... it's actually a Gabcom satellite. Her dad's company has apparently branched into space tech research, and a manned satellite has recently been getting hit by errant debris, collecting around an older weather satellite, endangering the workers on board, which thus required Yaito to call in the best operator she knows to intervene on her behalf. Wow, Yaito, that's actually surprisingly altruistic. To actually care about more than yourself. It's a surprising change of wait, the episode is just screwing with us. As for the satellites... I'm actually curious if this eventually played any influence on the eventual creation of Gentaro Kisaragi. And yeah, it's occupied by Junkman, where as opposed to his game counterpart, hasn't gotten bitter to the concept of kindness and would like to be on good terms with others. But as he was created from junk data parsed from a breaking down satellite, he doesn't exactly know how. Thus is creating the problems others are experiencing, as he assumes inanimate space junk is all his friends. So we should get him a volleyball named Wilson then? But because he can't comprehend a difference between inanimate and sapient, well, he's after the satellite as one big friend, regardless of the people in it. Where he's getting all the junk though? Well, as Rockman explains inside the episode, ever since the Sputnik launch in the 50s, there have been thousands of objects launched into space, much of which has been abandoned or damaged beyond repair and hasn't fallen back to Earth, on top of the actual satellites we wanted to keep in orbit. That adds up to a lot of debris scattered up there. Hell, in a few hundred years if this continues, there's a hypothesis that the Earth might develop its own junk belt around the planet. This is also another reason why we're fairly sure there isn't extraterrestrial life anywhere in the vicinity of us in our sector of the Milky Way galaxy, to say nothing about it farther out. As with how tech development works, there'd be signs of this around other planets that are close enough to us for telescopes at our current tech level to zoom in on. Granted, space is big, so it's plausible it's around one we might have missed, but scientists have been looking for it. They managed to get on board the main station, and we see the true nuisance Junkman has been in his attempts to claim the Gabcom satellite, as he's been pelting the entire station with his junk friends. And the damage he's dealing is starting to add up, even flinging his own constructed castle at the place, which the group enter on their own to see if they can't deal with this. And inside they find Junkman's actually pretty creative Navi, building his own junk droids that populate it. Shimatta! Itsunomani? Ningen. I mean... And yeah, Attack of the Killer Junk Droids ensues, with them having to hunt down a Jack import amidst Junkman's attempts to slaughter them. But as Junkman has no first-hand knowledge with humans, well, all he knows is what he gleaned from the internet. And it shows why an AI learning that humanity is evil from the internet is complete and utter garbage as an idea. So, of course, a Navi based around garbage would use it. The simple Navis finally reach Junkman, but with his ability to use the junk around him freely, he easily defends himself from damage. It taking hitting him with the trusty boomerang chip to ultimately injure him, only for him to turn up the pressure of his attacks, with him disabling roll and glide. Ultimately, they get over the barricade and deal just enough damage to get Junkman to break from battle, and learn he was harming people far worse. And the entire ordeal here is sorted out, with Junkman agreeing to only take trash in space, and not the other satellites out there. And the group returns to planetside, with a new collector of debris helping out the humans in the space above the sky. The wrap-up. We have Forgotten by the Plot, to Toru, where at the end of the episode it's revealed he was still waiting at the abandoned hot spring for everyone else after Yai used him to set this all in motion. We have Also Sprach Zarathustra, for the 2001 A Space Odyssey reference. We have Recurrent Nuisance, to Yaito and how she always screws people over, even if she might have a good reason this time. We have In Space, No One Can Hear You, to the Hikari group taking the first of a few trips to actual space, and not just faking it as they did last season. Surprisingly, this episode is harmless, introducing Junkman so the next time he shows up later, he's able to give up junk sold to the assembled arsenal. Help that Junkman here is more misguided than malicious as his game counterpart was. Not much else to say, beyond how, once again, this shows why getting Yaito out of the story was a good idea, as how much extra she can be can really harm any more grounded story the show would attempt to do otherwise. Having her be around every now and then makes such a lot less of an issue, even though the nonsense she pulls is still ridiculous. But it's at least established ridiculous instead of it coming out of nowhere, with the largest hindrance still being the sight gags that are invoked with her that harms the broader sense of consistency with the setting, and go far too far for a comedy gag, which is basically all they are at this point. At the very least, this was more reined in than previous ones, even if it did involve them hiding a spaceship in the middle of town. Which, yeah, that's not a good thing for anyone that knows about rocket science.